Welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Sorry, got a lot of things going on this morning. I'm excited. We've got a live Zoom interview coming up in just a little bit with former Congressman Tom Reed. So that is in just a little bit. If you have any questions, as a matter of fact, there's our contact information. I want to start, and I'm going to run through some breaks early this morning just so we have as much time possible with the former congressman, because obviously we have a lot of questions to get to. But first, I wanted to mention, obviously we've been talking a lot about Israel. President Biden is going to give an address to the nation as he is home now from his trip to Israel. He is going to address the nation from the Oval Office today at 8 p.m. So keep that in mind, right? Yes, tonight. But obviously, you've seen the pictures, you've seen the news reporting, and the news reporting has been horrible in so many ways. We've even seen some in the media speak out about it, that is leading to these protests at embassies when the media essentially uses talking points from Hamas to suggest it was Israel that bombed the hospital. We now know that's been disproven. So it's been very discouraging, and obviously it's been a heartbreaking couple of weeks, and I know I've had a lot of comments from viewers who have had the same feeling as me. It's tough to talk about this every morning. This is encouraging. This is coming from our current Congressman Nick Langworthy. He released a statement yesterday that he has introduced legislation to ensure no Americans are left behind in Israel. It's called the Safe Way Home Act, and it's going to redirect the millions of dollars the Biden administration is using to house illegal immigrants in the United States, and instead use those funds to evacuate American citizens from Israel safety. So let's put up his statement on this legislation. In the wake of the barbaric terrorist attacks in Israel, the United States must do everything we can to ensure the safety and well-being of our citizens in the region. While the Biden administration continues to spend millions to house illegal immigrants, they've left Americans in Israel to fend for themselves, only offering a loan or tickets on foreign airlines. The Safeway Home Act will redirect resources from illegal immigrants to bring our own citizens home from conflict areas. So again, it's called the Safeway Home Act. We'll keep you updated on that. Sounds like a great plan. He is joined, Representative Langworthy is joined by the original co-sponsors, Representatives Brian Donalds, Elise Stefanik, Claudia Tenney, Nicole Malatakis, Randy Weber, Greg Stube, Kat Kamek, Doug Lamborn, and Troy Balderson. So I wanted to bring that to your attention before we take our first break. Thank you to Congressman Nick Langworthy for sending that along. And just quickly, and to talk about the heartbreak that we've all been experiencing and witnessing on this, listen to this headline from The Sun out of the United Kingdom. Just this headline speaks volumes. Grief and rage inside Israel, where everyone's at a funeral or drafted for war. Boy. So I know, but we've got to bring the news to you here on Frankly Speaking. So stay with us. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break. Our beautiful view of Market Street there. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We'll be talking with former Congressman Tom Reed in just a little bit. Oh, by the way, a virtual wave. Okay, Biden said, this is the thing. So Biden's going to address the nation tonight at 8 o'clock to talk about the trip. Biden says, I don't even like criticizing these things because it's, at one point they were called Bidenisms, which always kind of drove me a little crazy because you think if someone else had said this, it would be, the end of the world. What I mean by someone else, if it was a Republican president, right? This is so odd to me. We had a couple examples yesterday one example where he said to Benjamin Netanyahu that it looks like it was the other team. And team seems weird, but this one's really strange. The president said, "I'm not suggesting that Hamas deliberately did it," meaning bombing that hospital. "It's that old thing. Got to learn how to shoot straight." I don't know. But Stephen Collinson is shocked, if you could say it. The headline for this CNN piece: Middle East still in turmoil after Biden's Israel visit with Netanyahu. Listen, I don't know how much faith you put into President Biden. You could be a huge supporter, and you're welcome to comment at any time on this program, please. I would love to hear from you. But if you are the biggest Biden supporter, your whole car has stickers on it, did you ever think that this visit would end the turmoil in the Middle East? I don't know. I mean, I think we would have loved that. I don't think anybody had that expectation except for Stephen Collinson from CNN. President Biden left for home after 7 hours in the Israeli war zone, with an increasingly tense Middle East in worse shape than when he arrived. So not only did he not fix the problems, according to Stephen Collinson, it's in worse shape than when he arrived. Maybe, I don't know if he writes his headlines. I just found that as a very odd headline. Now, as I said, we're going to go through a couple breaks quick because I want to have as much time as possible with former Congressman Tom Reed to ask about his thoughts on Israel, ask about some recent developments with China and Russia, because that was an issue he talked about a lot at the end of his term. We're going to try to get to as much as possible. But when we come back, I do have a really interesting piece by Rich Lowry, and it's more of a question for you as well. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm Mark Strinconi. You just saw that beautiful view from our roof cam. Okay, so this is a question for you, and I think it's a very fair question. I don't believe, and I could be wrong, don't quote me on this, I don't believe that Rich Lowry is the biggest Trump fan. But he asks a question that I've kind of been asked a lot in different ways, which is, during the Trump administration, what was kind of the reason for peace? Now, I know if you weren't a Trump supporter, you're saying, well, not peace here. We were divided. I'm saying internationally. So Rich Lowry asks the question, do our adversaries fear Biden? They did Trump. And he said Donald Trump's relatively crisis-free presidency in foreign affairs has created a sense, perhaps an accurate one, that he cowed enemies into not challenging the U.S. As Senator Tom Cotton has pointed out, Kabul didn't collapse on Trump's watch, Russia didn't invade Ukraine, and Hamas didn't launch a historic terror attack on Israel. But the argument the adversaries feared him and therefore acted with a measure of restraint is quite intuitive. And I had said this going way back when people would ask me. I would say, if you are a Trump supporter, could you have answered the question of what his response would be if any of those things happened, or if anything would have happened that was a provocation against the United States or an ally? And I don't think you could answer. It was kind of the, what's the term I'm looking for? Just a question. You don't have a clear answer. You do not know what Trump would have done, whatever you think of that. So I'll continue. The fact Trump was erratic and took perceived slights so seriously made it difficult to know how he would react to any given provocation. Maybe he was just blustering. Maybe he was ready to take it even further. But who wanted to find out? Of our adversaries, who wanted to find out? In other words, Trump spoke loudly and carried a stick of indeterminate size. And this was perhaps as good as carrying a big stick. This is a lengthy piece, but I thought, again, I probably talked about it on this program before, but I know I've had this conversation with many people. I don't think any of us knew the answer in this country or elsewhere what Trump's response would be to any of the things we've seen under the Biden administration, but just in general, if something else would have happened during his presidency. Now, just to end Lowry's piece here, Rich Lowry from the Post, he said, to his credit, President Joe Biden has said the appropriate thing in the appropriate things in the wake of the Hamas attack, but sentiments go only so far. A more important question is whether the right people fear Biden as they appear to be scared of his predecessor. So your thoughts on that? I thought that was a very intriguing piece, maybe putting into words something that we've all had a conversation about. And I just thought it was I thought it was worth mentioning. How's that? So let's take another break here. I did want to mention, here it is. One quick local issue that you could pass along that I'll put up on the screen here. Our friends at the Salvation Army are currently taking applications for food and toys for the Christmas season. You can see the times there, the location, and the number to call. I will tell you, requirements are parent or legal guardian only, okay? And you must provide a photo ID for applicant, proof of address, proof of all household income, an ID for all children 0 to 13 years. You would need to bring 2 toy selections, clothing and shoe size per child, and no item is guaranteed. And as always, please wear a mask if you are not feeling well. So as we near the Christmas season, we're going to be doing some exciting things with the Salvation Army. And so I thought it would be a great time to bring up all the amazing work that they do for our community. Let's take a short break. We will be back. We're going to be joined by Congressman Tom Reed. When we come back, stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Akema. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. And joining us on Zoom this morning, former Congressman Tom Reed. Tom, it's great to see you.
It's good to be with you, Frank. Good to see some old pictures of Market Street there. Yeah. You were just showing before we went live, and it's good to be with you.
Isn't that great? That's right from our roof. That's live right this morning. So that's what it looks like on Market Street. So, Tom, we've got a lot to cover. I don't even know where to start, but I thought the topic we've talked about the most on the program lately is Israel, and I thought maybe you could weigh in on what you're seeing over there and the heartbreak.
I will tell you, it's horrific. Obviously, I'm working in D.C. Pretty much full-time Tuesday to Thursday. I have the law office up in Rochester, keeping me busy, but I'm still very engaged politically. I'm working with my former colleagues and now clients in the Middle East as well as internationally, and talking to our international clients, for example. It's very concerning. It is very concerning, the escalation that we have seen from Hamas and the horrific scenes of war and the death and destruction, and that's why it reminds me we must stand with our ally in Israel. They were attacked. This has been often said. They're not. Hamas represents an extreme faction of the Islam religion, and that needs to be stood up to. And the people and the folks that are caught in the middle of this have to be protected. But at the end of the day, this is much bigger than just a Hamas attack into Israel. You need to understand, if you study this issue, if you spend time on this issue, there are many moving parts behind the scene, that this is a true test for where America stands. It's another example of what happened with Russia and Ukraine. And I'm sad to say, my humble opinion, a lot of this is about the geopolitical realignment that is occurring in the world right now, primarily led by China at its core. And we need to be aware of that. As Americans, we need to wake up. We need to have to understand what is truly going on here.
And that's why it's so appropriate that you're on this morning, because I was doing, obviously, show prep. And this headline, I think, speaks volumes for especially what you were talking about at the end of your time in Congress and since, quite frequently. This is the headline: "With Putin by his side, Xi outlines his vision of a new world order."
That's the 5,000 word statement that we talked about often as we were exiting right before the Olympics in China. And they don't hide it anymore. The China officials, if you're interested, just Google that, read that statement. It's a public statement by Putin and China and President Xi, where they outline and they declare essentially victory, that they are the new leader of the free world. And that is scary. It is about 20, 30 years before their 100-year plan that is coming to a head right now. If you want to read the 100-Year Marathon, it's another good book if you want to get into this issue. But I will tell you, they're very bold about the leaders of this adversary idea of how government should work in the world. And they have openly said to our allies across the world, I met with these allies, I know these allies. And you know what? Democracy has had its run. It's over. You need to come with us. A communist-based, authoritarian type of government. They truly believe that's the way the world should be operating, and they're being successful to a large degree.
And the quote that they use, they obviously called each other old and dear friends. This is China and Russia. And then they depicted themselves as building a, quote, fairer, multipolar world. They're not hiding it.
And that's scary. No. And that's the point that as we watch these horrific things, and I know we all get busy in America, and we have our children to attend to, we have our day-to-day responsibilities at work, but that's the point. This is coming to a head, and we are going to have to get involved. These are moments in history of America's existence where when the people, American citizens, finally recognize what's at stake, we do the right thing.
Yes.
And that is why it's so important. And I appreciate President Biden right now. I appreciate him going to Israel, standing firm immediately when these attacks occurred. The Secretary of State went to Israel to send the message. We are standing firm on the side of Israel. But you see the extremism. And that's why this is a situational awareness probe to a large degree, in my opinion, by Iran, by China, by Russia. They're seeing how we react. And you're seeing people in America take to the streets saying, you know what, Israel is the offender. You're seeing Hamas being vindicated for this horrific, barbaric behavior, killing babies, I mean, there are horrific things. We have how many Americans held hostage?
Right.
Remember, and I was young, but I would live through the Iranian hostage situation. 50 of our people were held in Iran, and the whole country reacted in a unified voice saying this is unacceptable. But now you got protests in the street by fellow American citizens that are saying, no, Hamas, go ahead, take American citizens. It's okay. We're not going to react the way that we need to as a country. So I encourage every American out there. This impacts us, and you're going to get involved one day or another. It's better get involved sooner, so we speak with one united voice, and we stand up to the extremism, both abroad, and that is why when I left Congress, my last speech was about this exact issue. I knew what was going on. I saw it over the horizon. Extremism is going to destroy not only the world, but it's going to also destroy America.
And definitely to your point, you've seen people tearing down the signs in the city that show the hostages, photos of the hostages, just to make awareness. You've seen, obviously, the college campuses, but sadly, and this is why, to Biden's credit, he has been strong on Israel, because look at his party with these tweets instantly blaming Israel for the bombing at hospital, doubling down on it at recent protests and different. It's heartbreaking, but it's also maddening.
It truly is, and it's also troublesome when the president of the United States, one, has to stand up to that extremism within the Democratic Party and call it out. That very positive thing from Biden's perspective, but the fact he has to do it is very troublesome. But don't underestimate, and I'm very concerned, when I saw and heard that the president was going to go to Israel in the middle of this war, people don't understand how much of an escalation that is.
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly what China, Russia, Iran are looking for. Does America have to escalate, not only militarily?
Right.
That's a question for a day that's coming, but diplomatically.
Mm-hmm.
It's like moving your most powerful piece into the middle of the war game in order to try to calm it down.
Mm-hmm.
That never should have come to existence to begin with, and it's a sign of the times of how much we are in the middle of this geopolitical reordering that is occurring when we have to move a chip such as big as the President of the United States in Air Force One,
Right.
flying into a war-torn country like Israel in order to try to de-escalate this situation. This used to be able to be done with phone calls.
Right.
This used to be able to be done with direct communication behind the scenes, not by the President of the United States, but a low-level staffer to a diplomat to a diplomat. Now look at what you have to deal with. You have a very serious situation ripening as we speak.
And do you see? We've had article after article that says it's just going to be this is going to be a very long war. Do you think that's the case? How do we, as a country, prepare for what's next?
That's the trillion-dollar question, literally.
Yeah.
That is being discussed here very much. We're doing with clients. We're doing with our former relationships politically. I believe, looking at if I had a crystal ball, this is part of situational awareness, that they will probe, they will determine, where all the chips lay on the battlefield, if you would, and then they'll de-escalate. What I'm watching very closely is what does, remember, Hamas is one thing. They're a Sunni-based operation in the Middle East. Hezbollah is a Shiite, and they're much more under control and aligned with Iran and their thought process. Right. So this is kind of using your adversary, a fellow extremist with Hamas, right, to probe the situation. If Hezbollah engages, and the rockets and all that, that's engagement. But what I'm talking about is a very high escalation of Hezbollah's in the northern country engagement into this conflict. That means Iran has fully given the green light, and Iran doesn't act unless Russia and China okay it. Right. So if you see that, that's where this becomes a very protracted potential major war that's going to go further beyond the area that's involved today. I do believe that China is doing what China does best. They probe, they get the lay of the land, and they always are taking the path the longest, the patient.
Right.
And so they'll get all the details, all the intelligence of the situation, and then when they feel comfortable that they have all that data, all that information, then they'll do what they're going to do, and these are the checkmate moves, taking Taiwan, cutting off our supply chain, making sure that our allies that typically stand with us run to their arms because they feel safer rather than embracing America, embracing China. That's why the movement that you see with the Arab and Saudi Arabia and other allies in the Middle Eastern region are so critical to watch, because as they are not really standing up with America and with Israel to the degree that they remember the Abraham Accords that occurred. They're sending signals. Okay, we'll go to China. That is what they're looking for, and maybe China. This is where unintended consequences or miscalculations have serious consequences. And China might say, "Oh, we know the lay of the land. We're going to move now," and that is also a concern, because militarily, you move two Air Force or Navy carriers, and they're supportive. That militarily weakens us if there has to be a move that they take in the South Pacific Sea, the China Sea, and that area.
Well, Tom, can you stay with us through a break? We'll change the topic up a bit. All right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Here we go. Here we go. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. We are being joined this morning by former Congressman Tom Reed. Tom, we have so much to... Whoa, that's not you. That's the other view of Marcus
There you
Street.
go.
There you go. I just want to show you all of Marcus Street here. Obviously, we've got to talk about, it's not an easy transition from Israel, but something that I think ties in. We obviously have the speaker's race and what has been described by everybody in the media, I'm sick of hearing it, as chaos. What are you seeing on the ground in Washington?
It one, it never had to come to this phase, to be perfectly honest with you. But I guess maybe it needs to, because what's really happening here, and I'm involved with this behind the scenes and having numerous conversations with. Obviously, I know all these people. I'm friends with people on both sides of the aisle. I'm watching this, and I love the institution. I love the institution of Congress. When it works well, it is the most enjoyable, powerful, impactful, and can really help people and our country out. But sometimes when you go through these evolutions, we've gone through this in the Republican Party
Yes.
before the Democratic Party's going through it. We're further down the road in regards to this family discussion of the factions of the Republican Party. There is the Republican Party that has, to a degree, there's a heavy influence by a small minority of extremists that, in my humble opinion, that want to go one way. It's my way or the highway, and they don't really care about the tools that are deployed in order to accomplish that. But that those tools can have destructive consequences, and that's where I've always been a voice within the party to say, look, I'm a Tea Party Republican in the sense of 2010. I went to Congress. I agree. We need to disrupt, change Washington, D.C. The swamp does need to be drained. I am 100% on that. But I think what you need to do when you come into an institution like that is recognize what you're dealing with. You need to play chess, not checkers. You need to be thinking 4-7 steps down the road, how you lead and inspire the institutions to change for the positive for the American people, and listen to the American people who are demanding that this occur. And so what's happened here in the speaker's race is that internal debate within the Republican Party now has gone, and our dirty laundry has essentially been exposed to the world and to the country. And that's not a bad thing in the sense of it's okay, but it's ugly, and it has unintended consequences. And that's what we're dealing with right here, right now.
And the media can exploit it too. And that's one of the, and listen, the media is never going to be overly friendly to Republicans, but this is just giving them the opportunity. Like I said, chaos being used all the time, and Israel, and then we have no one as speaker. It's really, I think it's really hurting Republicans. And I don't like the fact that you have Kevin McCarthy, who did work with Democrats to get that continuing resolution, and then 8 Republicans work with, to punish him, they work with Democrats to get him kicked out. How is that?
Yeah. I mean, it's using the opportunity. And you got to remember, there are members of Congress now who are not really interested in the long-term fix that is necessary to go through this chess game. They want to play checkers. They want to have, and a lot of them of this ilk, to be perfectly honest with you, are exploiting that movement, that base, to their own personal ego, for their campaign fodder, for their campaign resources, the millions of dollars that they're getting out of people that they're going to bankroll and then use in their next move in the political career, or they're going to use as they leave Congress. And that's a whole nother conversation another day. Those are the ones that are most dangerous to me. Those that don't really substantively care. I can live with guys like Jim Jordan, for example, in the sense of he's on a true mission that he wants to change Washington, D.C., and he recognizes it's a harder game. However, the problem that Jim has is he's embraced kind of that initial tactic of just blow the place up without playing chess, and now he's branded into that mode. That's why I think you're going to see his speakership come to an end, because people recognize even if he's tried to play that chess game, he can't get away from that brand. But then you got other my colleagues, and I don't speak ill of any of my other of my colleagues, who really are just there to just play the checker game for their own personal interest. And I'll let you, the audience, I trust the people to make the determination as to who those folks are that are causing this problem to continue and to be exacerbated. So I think at the end of the day, we're coming to the fever is breaking. We've gone through this exercise of having this aired to the public. and to our fellow Republicans to make their informed decision as to where they think the party should go. And we'll now get past this moment. And I do believe the next step is going to be an individual like Patrick McHenry, who will take the helm, get us through this difficult time, break the fever, get us back to work, and then we'll have an honest debate. Because remember, we're going into 2024 already. Right. We're going to have a political season. Congress doesn't do anything I've been through presidential cycles before. Congress doesn't do anything in regards to a political cycle generally. It's all politics in order to have engage in the presidential politics as well as the re-election cycles of senators and House members. So that's where we're going through. So we'll have a family discussion between now and November 2024. Patrick, in my humble opinion, will be the individual to guide us through that period of time. And then in November of 2024, we'll get a whole new cast of characters that will come to Congress, the People's House. The people will speak, and then they'll make a decision going in January as to who the next speaker is going to be. Now, my hope is that we've given fodder to our adversaries on the other side of the aisle politically to give them a real shot of taking the majority in the House of Representatives in November and also losing the potential Senate. But I hope we have enough time to overcome that so that it can be a Republican speaker come January of 2025, because I think our voice is needed more now than ever as a Republican Party. And we need to stand up to what the Democrats are going to be going through in the next year and a half. And our lessons to teach them is this is what you're going to have to deal with. Either you stand up to it early and don't get into this situation where the tail is wagging the dog, or you're going to have the same problem. And that's what I'm hearing in the Democratic circles. Remember, I talked to these guys on both sides of the aisle, and the extremism on the left is extremely dangerous. As we speak.
Yep. Tom, we're just about out of time, and I want to ask you quickly, because we haven't spoken in a little while, about is there any updates on no labels? Because I know you released an op-ed, and I know there's been a lot of talks about a potential presidential candidate with the no labels group. Any updates that you can give us?
Yeah, so no, other than we are strengthening, I'm involved in the presidential cycle as we speak. And what is good about it is it's disrupting the status quo. And you don't change, especially in presidential politics and the institution, you're not going to change it in one cycle. Right. But we're starting to harness the voice of that silent majority that's on both the left and the right that's more pragmatic. And we are organizing that voice. And the smaller and smaller percentages of the Democrat and Republican Party that are trying to control everything are becoming marginalized. Now, they are scared because there's a lot of money they're making by doing that, the people behind them. And second, they want to control and get America to go down these paths of extremism. And they can't do it because the silent majority is too big. And the silent majority of people that are proud Americans at their core are saying, no more. Who's going to be our voice? And that's where the opportunity is to disrupt Washington, D.C. Remember, it's a chess game, not a checker game.
All right, Tom, before we go, how's life after Congress? The easy question.
It's good. I'm still busy. Like I said, I'm down here Tuesday to Thursdays. I'm back home the rest of the time. Glad to see a lot of friends up at the lake and seeing people around town. And I had some people down here that were updating me on the give and take of Corning here recently. So it's good. Yeah. I really do enjoy it. But I care too much about our country that I can't just go into retirement quietly.
Sure. You ready for deer season?
I want to get up there. We almost went there. I'm going to go next weekend. We're going to go out and take the bow out. But that's the plan unless something else comes up. But my son and I really enjoy bow season, as you know.
I know it.
Frank, and you've known over the years. And just sitting in a tree, to me, that is true escape. So if I could do that in full-time retirement, maybe that's what my wife will be happy that we go down that path.
Well, I can't wait to get the picture of your son getting another monster buck.
He's the luckiest kid in the world, I'll tell you that one. He's not even a kid, he's 23. But
every year
we ignited his passion on that side, and I'll tell you, he's a big fisherman and a hunter, and I'm so proud to be there with him when we have those moments that many of your viewers have experienced.
Of course.
It is something where the heart swells.
Yeah. Well, he gives me hope that I'll see one of those one of the days of my life. Well, Tom, thanks so much for being on the program. Let's do this again soon, okay?
We will, Frank. I'm always available.
All right. All right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking. As is normally the case, I was chatting off the air with former Congressman Tom Reed. So there we go. We're going to end meeting for all. So you didn't get to see the roof cam that time. That was fun to catch up with Tom. I haven't seen him in a while. We'll have him back on the program soon. Okay. How are we doing on time? Going back to Israel, and it is tough. I will be in full disclosure. I've mentioned this a few times on the program. It is tough to segue, just like with that interview, and I hope I did a good job. But where you go from something as tragic and heartbreaking as Israel, and then to the speaker's race, and then to this and that. But I do want to get back to a few issues with Israel. We'll talk a little bit about the speaker's race. I would love to have you weigh in on what you thought of any of the topics that we talked with former Congressman Tom Reed about. I will say, I think, and this has been a big issue on this program from day one, talking about the threat of China, I think is very much overlooked by the media and also politicians that have a lot to gain financially. And look at Hollywood, how much they have to gain from China. So how often do they censor a video or censor a movie? It is very troubling. But let's go back to the discussion on Israel. Senators have called on Biden to formally freeze the $6 billion ransom. That's ransom money, of course, to Iran. It's a bipartisan group of 14 senators led by Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn, Joni Ernst, and Jackie Rosen. And they're calling on the Biden administration to freeze the $6 billion it agreed to release to Iran in exchange for 5 American hostages last month. That was just last month. And think of what has happened since. This also, and these two things are going to tie together. Let me look how I'm doing on break. Okay, so we're doing really good. Wow, okay. There's a article from the Associated Press that says war between Israel and Hamas raises fear about rising hostilities in the United States. Well, I think one of the numbers are really, listen to this. Let me read the numbers first, and then I'll get into why I brought this up. In its annual report released Monday, the FBI estimated that hate crimes increased by 7% in 2022, with 1,124 incidents of anti-Jewish attacks. And that was only the second, but not only, that's a weird way they word that, but they're the second most reported hate crime after anti-black cases. So 1,124 incidents of anti-Jewish attacks. There were 158 reported incidents of anti-Muslim attacks. I would say, whatever your thoughts on that is, you don't want to see any hate crime. I will say, obviously, that it's disproportionate media coverage there, because how often do you see news regarding the 1,124 incidents of anti-Jewish attacks? But one of the things that is fanning this flames is, like we were just talking about, you have not just the media, not just some, unfortunately, in Hollywood, but also politicians, people that are elected that have this anti-Semitic streak, that are fanning the flames, tweeting before the information is known. So I'm going to give you a quick example of that when we come back. So please stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. We do have to take one last short break before we wrap up, but I had mentioned the war between Israel and Hamas, this piece from the Associated Press that raises fear about rising hostilities in the U.S. And I mentioned, you've seen it at the college level, the professors right down the road in Cornell that have had saying these horrible things about the attack on the Israeli people. You've seen it in the halls of Congress, unfortunately. We saw the protest at the Capitol yesterday, where some of the members of the squad doubling down on what they were saying about the attack on the hospital. But MSNBC's Dana Bash and others, but I'm going to start with Dana Bash, take a break, and then wrap up. But she said, I see these images of people protesting in the street outside of our embassies and having world leaders cancel a meeting on the president because the media botched this entire story being the bombing of the hospital. I think there's some real analysis that people have to do about journalistic integrity. She also said previously, it's irresponsible what the media did to rush to judgment on the hospital blast, really taking almost the PR, the press release from Hamas directly. Let's take our last break, and then we're going to wrap up. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. A beautiful day on Market Street here in downtown Corning. Thank you again for joining us on Frankly Speaking this morning. I'm your host, Frank Akam. Just to piggyback off what we were talking about before that last break, Isaac Shore writes for the New York Post, the media parrots Hamas's lie without question, and Jews suffer for it. I mean, they, like I said before break, essentially using their PR apparatus, the PR apparatus of Hamas, and reporting it, and leading to this misinformation, leading to people dividing the country even more. In America, prominent anti-Semites like Representative Tlaib and Omar are using the fake news to inspire their fellow travelers and continuing to repeat the blood libel long after it's been disproven. This again, Isaac Shore. Palestinian terrorists killed Palestinian civilians. Hamas lied about it, and the media presented that lie as the reasonable claim of a neutral third party. Now Jews will suffer for it. This constitutes one of the most flagrant and consequential failures of the American press in decades, and the full measure of its repercussions will likely not be known for years to come. I thought it was very powerful and very true and very poignant. We talked about it with former Congressman Tom Reed for just a moment, but as you know, Jim Jordan, the vote failed yesterday, actually gaining 2 more people to vote against Jim Jordan. I have a list here, but there's a lot of votes for various people. You know, some voting for McCarthy, some voting for Lee Zeldin, Steve Scalise, quite a few Zeldins here. Kind of interesting. But yes, some are calling for, well, maybe that was the first ballot. I should have looked. But some are calling for Jim Jordan to now step down and give somebody else a shot. Yeah, there's a few Zeldins on the second ballot from yesterday. Of course, you have the media saying, for Republicans, Plan D in the House Speaker crisis, now it's a crisis, chaos, could require Democrats. Well, they said they went through each plan in this piece by Zachary Wolf of CNN. Plan A failed because governing was punished. Well, who punished for governing? Who punished for reaching across the aisle and working for that continuing resolution, meaning Kevin McCarthy, what he did? Well, sure, it was 8 Republicans, but it also happened to be all the Democrats that said, you know how you worked with us in good faith to get this continuing resolution through? You're not going to be punished for it. We're now going to make sure that we're going to show that we don't really care about negotiations. It's all about politics. All right, we are out of time. Thank you again to former Congressman Tom Reed for being on the program. It's great to catch up with him. Have a great day. Make sure you tune in tomorrow morning starting at 7 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Have a great day, everyone.